So everyone's talking about the Lumix S1II. People are switching, praising the image quality, hyping the space, and yeah, it looks impressive. But here's one thing, I am not switching. Because when it comes down to shooting day in, day out, Sony still wins for me. And let me show you why. First, let's focus on autofocus. No pun intended there. It is still clearly better on Sony. Yes, I'm really happy to see the improvements to Panasonic, that they're finally listening, and it is somewhat holding up to Sony. But it reminds me of like the olden days where like the, old Sony cameras started getting really good at autofocus and they progressively got better. Where Sony right now is just blowing it up out of the water with autofocus. I could trust this thing. I love that it has subject detect. You can, it's smart enough to know focus on whatever's in the frame. The tap to focus is amazing where you can tap and track. All these things just make this camera so easy to use, and it's just so easy to shoot on. And yes, that pretty much leads me into my next point there. Let's just breeze right over autofocus and understand that, yeah, Sony's still the best and the king. So Lumix, I'm sure we'll get there eventually, but Sony just makes it way easy to shoot. Their menu system has improved a ton. It's quick, clean, a beautiful image. You get no deep menu dives required with all these cinema modes that are in the Panasonics. The Lumix S1 gives you a ton of shooting modes, ton of codecs, but honestly, unless you're doing high-end commercial cinema work, it can feel a little overkill, and it might actually slow you down. Now, let's talk specs. I'm not going to go do a deep dive here, but the S1II shoots 4K 120 frames per second, but it does that with a crop. And that's huge if you care about maintaining your field of view. Sony's A7S III gives you 4K 120 with no crop, full frame, clean, no compromises. You're using the full sensor and getting the best image quality possible. And while we're talking about image quality, let's also go into color depth. It matters. Lumix shoots at 420 10-bit. And back in the day, when all those people were praising, Panasonic for having 210-bit, Sony came out and finally added it, but now Sony gives you 422 10-bit. That's richer color and more flexibility in post, especially for those important color grading times. And you can't say that it doesn't matter if you are, that's the thing, everybody hyped it up when Sony didn't have 10-bit and we were living with 8-bit and we were saying, it's good enough for now, we would love to have 10-bit, but the image quality is still so good, we're willing to wait it out. And when Sony finally added it in there, they went all in and did 422. And now, the Panasonic people are you can't really tell the difference. They're saying on one hand that the Panasonic 420, you can't tell the difference, and on the other hand, they're saying, yes, the Sony's sharper and has a sharper image, but we like the softer look on. You can't have it both ways. All this to say is, I'm not saying that the Panasonics are bad cameras right now. They're putting some amazing specs in for those price. And let's be honest, the Sony has been doing it now, and this is a 4-year-old camera. Of course, Panasonic is finally catching up, and who knows what Sony is going to release this year. But all that to say is, yes, I'm really happy that Panasonic is doing that. But audio is another big win for Sony. And thanks to their MI Hotshoe, you get direct digital audio with no cables. Mics like the ECM B1M, the ECM M1, the XLR K3M, and even the DJI Mic 2 and Mini have a little Hotshoe adapter where you can attach the DJI mics with no cables, and it just works. Lumix does have their DW XLR2 module that supports 32-bit float, which is fantastic. They do have the leg up for that 32-bit float module. But it is $500 without a mic, where Sony's K3M is $600, but it does include a shotgun mic. So there is a little bit more value there. It has an auto mode, which is not 32-bit float, but it works so well that I can just flip the thing in auto mode and not have to worry about anything. It's a cleaner workflow. With Lumix, other than the XLR adapter, you're just back to using cables. And let's actually get into switching costs. So all these people that say they're going to be switching, if you're deep into Sony, lenses, mics, batteries, cages, switching to Lumix means starting all over from scratch. You're not just buying a new body, you're buying everything all over again, and I think people tend to forget that. And for what? Slight spec bumps that might improve your actual work, but let's be real. A lot of this switch talk feels like just gear acquisition syndrome, and I know we all been there before, but when the hype kicks in and a new camera drops, suddenly it feels like you need to do it. You need to upgrade too, and your gear is now all of a sudden trash. But to be real honest with you, like my A7S III here is a killer camera with specs that could probably last me and get me by, for video at least, for the next 4 to 5 years, no problems. So ask yourself this. Are you really feeling limited by your Sony camera? Are you using the A7 IV, the A7S III to its full potential? The A7 IV, the A7S III, and even the ZV-E1, they're all incredible tools. Like I said, they didn't just go terrible overnight. Just because Panasonic came out with a camera that is priced out really well with a lot of specs. But, you know, Sony also has fantastic APS-C line, and especially for their cameras, they all use the same mount. You have a ecosystem that you can upgrade over time, and it all works together. It's just, there is so many pros to staying Sony or even starting for the first time and joining into the ecosystem. You know, it's just so easy to shoot on. Another reason I'm sticking with Sony is that I have more faith in Sony long term. They're pushing innovation year after year, better color, better autofocus, better heat management, better low light, and they're keeping their bodies small. And while still raising the bar, the FX line, the ZV line, they're all building tools for every level of creator. And Lumix made some big leaps in the recent years. But Sony has a consistent track record of staying ahead. And that's something you just can't look past and forget, especially if you're looking to invest into the system. If there is one thing that I'd like to borrow from the Lumix, it's that LUT support for photography. It's something that Sony needs to add. Like, that would be awesome and would make me super happy. Otherwise, Sony checks really all the boxes for me, really. I mean, I don't really need open gate or crazy cinema scope features and all that Lumix does provide. And I mean, I would like to see Sony maybe step up the game a little bit and add some of these features, but do I need them personally? I don't really think so. And here's the real takeaway, okay? Modern cameras are all capable. There's not really a bad option out there anymore. And when it comes down to is what fits your workflow and which company do you trust to keep innovating. If you're buying your first camera, there's tons of amazing options out there, and Lumix cameras could be something that you could consider. But I just want to encourage you to think long term. Which brand gives you the ecosystem that you can grow with? And if you have already shoot Sony, does your camera suddenly just suck now? Of course not. Your gear didn't get worse overnight just because something new launched. Don't let the hype drive your decisions. Ask yourself honestly, do you feel limited with your current setup? Can you actually afford to sell everything and repurchase a whole new kit and then possibly regret it 6 months later when Sony drops a new camera that outperforms everything and shifts the market once again? Sometimes the smartest move is just to master what you already have and let the gear chase you and not the other way around. So I think Panasonic is doing some really incredible things in the market right now. I love it. They're driving competition, and competition gives us, at the end of the day, more specs. And every brand, Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, Canon, I don't know if they ever actually listen, but hey, Are you sticking with Sony? Are you tempted by Lumix? Or just waiting it out right now? And let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, like, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube things, and you guys know that I will see you in the future. Look at this Sony, man. It's so small and just compact and packed in with features. I'm still happy. I am certainly still happy. My wife appreciates that too.